Whew. Guys, I got coffee and cough drops up here with me, so man, I was resurrected last week. I was in bed for like 3 days, but I'm fully covered. It's my first time speaking since then. 9 a.m., I started getting that throat tickle, so if I have a little slurp while I'm speaking, it's the cough drop, all right? Don't judge me. All right, September 2018. Rachel, who's just up here, my wife and I, we moved here to the Chino Preserve. We live literally right up the street. Woot woot for the preserve. Oh, there we go. I have a feeling that the 11 a.m. is going to be a little bit more alive this morning than 9, which is good. I know some of you, we got some of you rowdy people up here, which I like. Let's go. We're just getting going. We'll go to 1 p.m. today. So we move in, new house. It's got all the feels, budding excitement. Things are going well. About a month or two in. It's like October, November, so the weather starts changing a little bit. And it starts to get a little cold. Now, we got a 6-month-old. Parker is our oldest. He's 6 months at this time, so we got a baby. It's getting a little cold. So for the first time ever, we go to the Nest thermostat. Who here's got a Nest thermostat? All right, if you know, you know. And that was my first time having a Nest. It was like super digitally sophisticated. I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And so I go to turn it on, and the heater doesn't work. Oh, okay. I got a 6-month-old kid. We got to keep him warm. So thankfully, a lot of things were new in the house, so we had the 1-year warranty on everything. Great. Rachel calls up insurance company. Hey, heater doesn't work, brand new. And so they're like, all right. So, they have to send out their heater guy. Like, we can't choose our own because it's got to be run through the 1-year warranty. So this dude shows up, and I don't know. I'm not there. I'm working, who knows what. So Rachel handles it, and I start getting some live texts from Rachel. And the texts are explaining the situation, and the situation is this. Apparently, this guy's looking at our heater, looking at the Nest thermostat, and he's like, yeah, I don't know how to fix Nest. I've never seen this before. It's like not what you want your heater guy to say. Okay. And then I feel like he kind of tells, so Rachel starts pulling out her iPhone, starts Googling stuff. She's trying to help the professional troubleshoot. And then she's texting me about it. And then he says, and then he's trying to fix the thing. He puts a crack on the glass screen of it. Ooh, bro, yes. And so Rachel's texting me this. And she's like, it's worse now than what it was when he got here. We're in a worse situation. Okay, well, call the insurance company. They didn't believe us, and it gets all bureaucratic. And then we got to submit proof. We take a picture, of the crack of the glass screens, emailing that to them, and we need a signature. You got to fill out all this. It's an absolute hassle, and it got 10 times worse than it was to begin with. So this whole thing is escalating here within minutes, and I'm like, man, I'm so glad I'm not home. And then I get the text of Mark, you need to come home to kick him out of the house. He's not leaving. Oh, okay. So daddy's coming home. And I get home, and I have to have the awkward conversation. Thank you so much. You cracked my thermostat. I had to, have him leave. He was making the situation worse, and he was trying to fix it, but he wasn't leaving. So I was like, dude, you got to leave. Finally, get him out, and we end up getting reimbursed from the insurance company. We get a new heater guy who actually fixes the problem in 2 minutes. Go figure. But to this day, we still, 6.5 years later, have that crack on our Nest thermostat. This morning, you're like, what? This is the last Sunday in our Genesis Origin series. I know many of you are so sad to hear that. You thought this day would never come. And here's why this morning is the last Sunday. We've hit a section in Genesis, chapter 12, which is the turning point. Because if you were here last week, you're like, you did chapter 11. Why? There's isn't there 50 chapters in Genesis? How are you done right now? Well, all scholars agree that you can structure the book of Genesis into two parts. Part 1, chapters 1 through 11, done. Chapter 12 is the start of part 2 for the rest of the entire book. So, here's what we've done so far. Quick little review as we land the plane. We'll put this up on the screen. Genesis 1 through 11 is to be understood as part 1. And of course, the chapters 1 and 2 is the creation story. God has made everything good, everything beautiful, and he puts humans in charge then to move forward the creation project. It's not up there, and it's not up there on purpose because the theme from Genesis 3 to Genesis 11, as you can see, is not a positive one. Here's what happens in part 1, Genesis 3 to 11. Chapter 3, you got the rebellion of the serpent. Same chapter, you got the rebellion of Adam and Eve, which represents all of humanity. Then you got Cain, who kills his brother Abel. Oh boy, here it comes. You got spiritual beings who have illicit relations with females, of which the Nephilim's offspring. That was a very odd sermon. And then we have the flood. God just wipes out the earth because there's a bunch of crazy people. And then we got the rebellion at the Tower of Babel, which Rachel talked about in chapter 11 last Sunday. This is chapters 3 to 11, and the point of it, when you read it, you're supposed to be like, man, this place is a mess. It's nothing but rebellion. It's nothing but like a virus. Sin is like a virus that has spread, and it's gotten worse. Okay, forgive me. That tastes good. It's like honey. Thank you, Doug. That man ran to a 7-Eleven during the 9 a.m. service. Let's give a round for Doug. Usher of the year? Oh, okay. We're giving out prizes now for ushers. Here's the point of why I brought up homeboy heater warranty story. I had to go kick that dude out of our house because the situation was getting worse. He made it worse. Genesis 3 to 11, by the time you get to chapter 11, God should be like, I've had enough. You humans are making it worse, not better. You've made this worse, progressively worse. I'm done, and I'm going to kick you out. This is the feel that you should have by the time chapter 11 ends. Because, God's got some options. God is God. He can do whatever he wants. So, now, he doesn't end up doing this, but sometimes it's helpful to understand the scriptures by asking, what God could have done this. God could have just ended humanity by the end of chapter 11. He had already flooded the world, and he said, I'm not going to do that again. But he could have done something else, and honestly, it would have made sense. He's like, I'm done. You guys, you're just making this worse and worse and worse. Another option. Maybe God, kind of like a Zeus mythological way, just zaps every single human being to fix them automatically. And so God kind of takes control of us and forces us to obey him. He just zaps us. Sometimes, someone's annoying, you just want to fix them. He's like, man, can I just zap you into fixing you? God could have done that. Again, he's God. He can do whatever he wants. Not what he does. And so now we begin part 2 officially, Genesis chapter 12. And there is a huge page turn here once chapter 11 ends. To help us frame the situation and understand it, here's Old Testament scholar Christopher Wright. He writes this about Genesis 1 through 11. We'll put this on the screen. Where can the mission of God go from here? What can God do next? Genesis 1 through 11 poses a cosmic question to which God must provide a cosmic answer. I like that. The problem so graphically spread before the reader in Genesis 1 through 11 will not be solved just by finding a way to get human beings to heaven when they die. Death itself must be destroyed if the curse is to be removed and the way open to the tree of life. Meaning this, God must answer Genesis 3 to 11. So what's God's solution? What's God's response? What's God's next move? We've seen it all. Chapter 11 ends. What is God going to do? With that in mind, for the last time, Genesis chapter 12. This is going to be our last passage of the series. By the way, next series is going to be on Leviticus. That was a joke. Well, maybe someday. But that was a joke. I'm not doing Leviticus. Genesis 12, if you've read Leviticus, you'll understand why I'm saying that. All right, Genesis 12:1, free Bible underneath your chairs. Let's hit the scripts. Verse 1. The Lord said to Abram, go from your country, your people and your father's household to the land I will show you, and I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you, and I will make your name great. Now, notice this. Chapter 11, Rachel, last week, the humans, Tower of Babel, they wanted to make their name great. This is the reversal of that. God says, I'm going to make Abram's name great. And you will be a blessing. And I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And check this out. All peoples on earth will be blessed through you. So Abram went as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he set out from Haran. It's like, he's like that guy who's held on to all his hotel reward points, and then he finally cashes them in at 75. He took his wife Sarah, his nephew Lot, and all the possessions they had accumulated and the people they had acquired in Haran, and they set out for the land of Canaan, and they arrived there. From my experience of trying to understand the Bible, trying to make sense out of it, what does it mean for us today? I would say that from Genesis 12 on to the rest of the Old Testament is probably the most misunderstood and confusing part of the Bible. Most people skip over the Old Testament for this reason, because they get into books like Leviticus. And they're like, what? It's confusing. It's hard to understand. And so we just skip over the Old Testament and we go right to the New Testament and Jesus. The problem with that is that 75% of the Bible is the Old Testament. So it seems like the Bible itself values the Old Testament so much so that it takes 75% of its entire length that's composed of the Old Testament. It's very interesting to think about, as important as creation is, and the fall of Satan and Adam and Eve, and those things are highly important. They only make up 11 chapters of the whole Bible. But Genesis 12, then from the rest of the Bible, is actually about the same plot line. So meaning this, it is impossible for me to overestimate, to overemphasize the importance of the promise in Genesis chapter 12, verses 1 through 3, because these three verses set the stage for the rest of the Old Testament, which is 75% of the Bible. What's the story? It's this. This is God's blueprint for how he's going to fix the world. What? Yeah. It's God's blueprint for how he's going to fix the world. You could say that this is another origin story. It is. This is an origin story, the beginning and the inception of the nation of Israel, the people of God. So it's like Genesis 12, we officially start part 2, and we get one more origin story. And this one happens to be God's strategy, his blueprint, his solution to the central conflict of Genesis of how is God going to fix the world? The answer, he's going to fix the world through a nation, through a people who ultimately owe their beginning to Abraham. Now, Abraham, he's called Abram here, later changed his name. If you grew up in the church, you got that old school Sunday song. You guys remember it? Father Abraham had many sons. Many sons had Father Abraham. Right arm, left arm. Okay, we're not a cult, I promise you. But that is a Sunday school song. It comes from Genesis 12. Again, Doug for the win. Here's why that song exists. Genesis 12:2. I will make you, God's talking to Abram, into a great nation. What's the nation? Ends up being Israel. So this is where Israel comes from, which is what the rest of the Old Testament is about. And the rest of the Old Testament is the outworking, both the good and the bad, of the nation of Israel, which comes from Father Abraham. And the point of Israel isn't just that, and I never understood this growing up. It's not that God just woke up one morning and was like, oh, let me just create my own nation. I mean, he does create his own nation, but there's a reason for Israel. Why does Israel exist? Chapter 12, verse 3, that all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. It's through Israel for the world. So important. You got to catch that. That is the purpose of Israel. So, same Old Testament theologian, Christopher Wright, I quoted earlier, he writes this. Here we go. What can God do next? Something that only God could have thought of. He sees an elderly, childless couple in the land of Babel itself and decides to make them the launching pad of his whole mission of cosmic redemption. Take that. One can almost hear the sharp intake of breath among the angels when the astonishing plan was revealed. They knew, as the reader of Genesis 1 through 11 now knows, the sheer scale of devastation that serpentine evil and human recalcitrance have wrought in God's creation. And here it is. The call of Abraham is the beginning of God's answer to the evil of human hearts, the strife of nations, and the groaning brokenness of his whole creation. Now, you should react to this like, what? Like, this is crazy. This is insane. God, why are you choosing to work this way? Again, God could have fixed the world. Well, he didn't have to fix the world if he didn't want to. But he could fix the world any way he wants. He could have blessed each person individually and zap them to fix them automatically like robots. Doesn't do that. Instead, it's almost like God takes the long, messy route. And he plans to restore the world through humans. By taking, as we learn, a 75-year-old childless couple who cannot get pregnant, which, by the way, in the ancient world is super taboo. Because having children was your legacy, your reputation, who you gave your inheritance to. So this is a big deal. And then he takes it even further and he tells this 75-year-old couple who's barren, he says, oh, by the way, Genesis 15, 3 chapters later, God takes Abram outside and he says this, look up to the sky, count the stars. If indeed you can count them, so shall your offspring be. Meaning, millions of people are going to come from you, from a barren 75-year-old woman. What? Are you kidding me, God? You're going to purposely choose to work with broken, weak, twisted, rebellious humans. That's all Genesis 3 through 11 is. Yes. Yeah. Why? Well, because this is the way that God has set up this world from the beginning. See, in Genesis 1 and 2, God makes humans, you and I, he makes us, it's astonishing, to work with him to advance his creation project forward. For whatever reason, God could have made robots, but he chose to make human beings and to work in and through us to advance his creation project. God is inviting you right now to partner with him to fix the world. That's crazy. We shouldn't say that lightly. Now, did you notice how often the word bless was used in Genesis 12? Now, this is thousands of years before #blessed. Let me reread Genesis 12. Let me point out the word bless. I will make you into a great nation, excuse me, and I will bless you. Now is the time to sneeze, by the way. Bless you. For those who got that, yeah. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you. Whoever curses you, I will curse. And all peoples on the earth will be blessed through you. In Genesis chapter 1 and 2, the word bless is there. The creation story. Day 5, fish and birds made. God says, I bless them. Day 6, God creates humans. I bless them. Day 7, God creates the Sabbath. He blesses the Sabbath. The word blessing, it's hard to explain, but it means that like all of God's like abundant, flourishing, generous, life-giving power is given to his good creation. It's what God means when he says it is good, like it's blessed. Creation and humans are blessed. And then he commissions human beings, you and I, to steward and to rule and reign and take care of these good blessings. But what happens? You know how many times the word curse is used, Genesis 3 to 11? You probably don't. The answer is 5. 5 times we learn that something is cursed from Genesis 3 to 11. The serpent is cursed. A brother curses his brother. The ground is cursed. Here's where things get interesting. If there's 5 curses from Genesis 3 to 11, you know how many blessings are in chapter 12? 5. Again, Doug for the win. Isn't that interesting? 5 blessings in Genesis 12, 2 to 3 are purposely opposing the 5 curses in Genesis 3 to 11. What's this mean? It means that God is fixing and restoring the world, and he's organizing his redemptive plan to fix the original creation, and here it is, he's doing it the exact same way that he created the world, through humans. Which means you. P. Hughes, in his book, All Things New, if Genesis 1 to 2 is the story of creation, and Genesis 3 to 11 is the story of decreation, then the rest of the biblical narrative is the story of God's movement towards recreation. Oh, bless you. I needed that 3 minutes ago, Lucy. Come on. This chronicle begins in Genesis 12 with the call of Abraham to be a father to the nation of Israel, which was chosen to be God's vehicle of blessing to the rest of the world. Israel, a second Adam of sorts, is now to be the true humanity, showing the rest of the world what it means to be human. Here's the bad news, though. If you know the story of Israel in the Old Testament, you know that Israel, they sure are like Adam, which means they fail in their calling to be a blessing to the nations. Now, they got some good moments, but by and large, the nation of Israel that comes from Abram, they go after other pagan gods and they commit idolatry. So they practice injustice, they ignore the poor, they oppress the marginalized. There's tons of sexual immorality, tons of greed, power grabs, religious hypocrisy, and it on and goes. And so what happens? Israel had built this majestic temple, this building for God to dwell in. God leaves the temple because he's not happy with them. So they lose God's presence. Then just like God removed Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden, they're exiled, so God removes Israel out of the land of Canaan, the promised land, and they're kicked out. God leaves the temple, takes them away from their land, and now they're not even their own nation state. They're not even sovereign anymore. And so Jesus shows up in the first century, and here's the state of Israel. It's not a good one. There's a remnant that's returned to the promised land, to Israel, but Rome, who's their enemy, is ruling over them. They're not even in charge of themselves. The temple was rebuilt, but it was nothing like what it used to be, and God's presence never comes back in to fill it. No presence of God. They're not even in charge of themselves. Israel is a failure. They are a disowned people without a land and without the presence of God. And so you're kind of like, what? What happened to Genesis 12? Like, what happened to the promise? Like, what happened to the, I'm going to make a ton of people come from you and you're going to have a great name? And we have this tension The Bible's to be read with tension. But the tension is actually even more than we think. The situation is worse than what we think. Because I haven't gotten to Genesis 15 yet. So now let's go to Genesis 15. This is 3 chapters after the original call of Abram, right? That God is going to bless him, and through him, he's going to bless the world. Well, Genesis 15 is this. If you're Abram and Sarah, and you're 75, and you're cashing in your hotel rewards points for the first time, and you're told that a nation's going to come from you, but you can't get pregnant, are you going to have some question and some doubts? Yeah, you are. You should. It'd be normal if you did. And God knows that. So in Genesis chapter 15, God makes a promise with them. It's called a covenant. Now, we don't use the word covenant too much today. The best modern day example of covenant, it would be like vows in a wedding. I did a wedding yesterday. There was a couple, they made vows. They made a covenant with one another till death do us part, right? A covenant in the ancient Near East was even more binding. It was like even more serious than wedding vows are today in the modern world. And the way that they stamped this covenant, or the way they sealed it, kind of like, we sign on the dotted line today, like even for a marriage certificate. Like I literally signed this certificate yesterday. It's like the stamp of approval. Their version of that, their version of a notary, it was very, very odd. So hang with me. I got to explain this, but this is very powerful. The way that they would seal a covenant, that they would stamp a promise, is that they would kill animals, like sacrificial animals, and they would cut them in half. They would lay one half on one side, the other half on the other side. Then the 2 parties that are a part of the covenant, the 2 parties that are coming together to make an agreement, they would walk through the middle of the 2 hams of the sacrificial animals. And the symbolism of walking through these dead halves, these dead carcasses, was this. May what has happened to these animals be done to me if I don't keep my oath to you. In other words, if I break this promise to you, you can kill me and split me in half. That was the seriousness of it. So I figured after preparing for this, like from here on out, new wedding vows, we're going to do that. That will be some interesting ceremonies. Can you imagine that? We have like dead goats. And anyway, gosh, okay. So it gets even better. Let's get some more tension here. I like tension. Tension's good. Okay. Most people don't say that. Abram's asleep. You're supposed to walk through the dead carcasses, both parties together. Abram's asleep. And God walks through it by himself, signifying that it's all on him. Now let's read the scene now that you understand a little bit. Genesis 15, 7 through 18, here it is. He also said to him, this is God talking to Abram, I am the Lord who brought you out of Ur of the Chaldeans to give you this land to take possession of it. But Abram said, Sovereign Lord, how can I know that I will gain possession of it? Meaning, God, give me a promise. So the Lord said to him, well, bring me a heifer, a goat, and a ram, each 3 years old, along with a dove and a young pigeon. Abram brought all these to him. Here it is. They cut them in 2 and arranged the halves opposite each other. The birds, however, he did not cut in half. Then birds of prey came down on the carcasses, but Abram drove them away. As the sun was setting, Abram fell into a deep sleep. Oh, I long for that. And a thick and dreadful darkness came over him. I don't long for that. Go to verse 17. When the sun had set and darkness had fallen, a smoking fire pot with a blazing torch appeared and passed between the pieces. By the way, that's the presence of God. On that day, the Lord made a covenant with Abram and said, to your descendants I give this land from the Wadi of Egypt to the great river, the Euphrates. Now, to help connect some pieces for you, here's Pete Hughes. He writes this. This amounts to God saying that he alone will bring about this plan to create a nation through Abram, and that he alone will bear responsibility for covenant disobedience. God makes a divine pledge that he would rather die then give up on his plans to restore created order and make all things new. And that's exactly what God does through Christ at the cross. God in Christ bears the punishment of covenantal disobedience, leaving Abraham's descendants to enjoy covenantal blessing and the fullness of life they were made for. In other words, God is so faithful to fix this world no matter what you and I do. Even in our brokenness, God will still, no matter how broken you are, he will still work through you to bless the world. God is faithful when we are unfaithful. And what was true of Israel 3,000 years ago, you better believe is true today. See, we often treat Old Testament stories like this one in Genesis 12 from 3,000 years ago as just kind of ancient children's stories. No. We talk about this story today because God still works through you today to bless the world. We don't read the Bible, or you shouldn't read the Bible just for more information or to learn about God. Now, is there information in there that we do learn about God? Of course. But we read the Bible so that, because God wants to bless you, listen to me carefully, so that he can use you to bless others through you. And the scriptures demonstrate that God's primary way that he works is through you. Meaning, God is looking for active partners today. God is looking right now for human beings that he can work in and through. See, so many of us today, we have what I call a passive spirituality, which means you think it's actually holy and good just to sit back and let God do everything. That's actually fake religious. So a trigger point for me, I see this all the time on Instagram. You're like, man, I don't want Pastor Mark following me on Instagram. Some of the stuff I see on there, I don't want to see, but yeah. That's another story. I see all the time, prayer's your way, or I'll pray for you. Now, I think that is a lot of the times just fake religious veneer so that you can just sit back and be spiritually passive. Now, what do I mean? Please pray, you should. I'm not saying don't pray. Hear me loud and clear. One of the first things we should do in everything is prayer. But let me just use an example. What if some of the stuff that we're praying about, God's just calling you to go do? You can pray about feeding the poor and being a generous person and tithing and giving 10% of your income all you want. But at some point, you just got to do it. God blesses you what? To be a blessing. That's the way God rolls. You're blessed to be a blessing. You're an actor, not passive. You're an actor in this drama, and you need to know the script. And so what I need you to ask yourself is this: God, how can I bless others? Put otherwise, God, what are you wanting to do through me for others? Woo. Now that will change your prayer life. God, what are you wanting to do in me and through me to others? And it doesn't matter how broken you are or how unfaithful you've been. Why? Because God loves to use the imperfect to make the perfect. God used a barren old woman to create a nation out of, and some of you here don't believe that God can use you to be a blessing. And if that's what you're thinking right now, check this out. You're the exact person that God loves to use. Because that was Abram and Sarah. The Lord said to Abraham, go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you, and I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you, and I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse, and all peoples on earth, every tribe and tongue will be blessed through you. So Abraham went and wrote in his journal and had tea for 4 months and kept by himself and was in silence and solitude before him. No. So Abram went as the Lord had told him. And Lot went with him. And Abram was 75 years old. Man, I'm sorry. If you're retired, you don't got an excuse. 75 years old, and a homeboy is being used for the kingdom of God. Forget picking up seashells on the beach and playing golf all the time. Use yourself for the kingdom of God. He took his wife Sarah, his nephew Lot, all the possessions they had accumulated, and the people they had acquired in Haran, and they set out for the land of Canaan, and they arrived there. Go! You're blessed to be a blessing. Mark, I don't know if I can commit to that. A little too much for me. A little too serious. I mean, come on, Mark. We live in a culture of uncommitment. I just got to keep all my options open. I'll bless sometimes, but not always. Sometimes I don't want to go. I just want to stay. Mark, statistically, half of people aren't committed to their own marriage. Statistically, employees are only at the same company for just 4 years. Statistically, you're considered a normal, faithful Sunday church attender if you just come once or twice a month. It used to be 4 Sundays, but now it's just once or twice a month. My goodness. Apple changes their phone every fall. Millennials, my generation, I can bag on my generation because I'm them and them under them. Millennials and Gen Z, we can't even commit to a social gathering because of FOMO, fear of missing out. You know who doesn't struggle with commitment? You know who don't struggle with FOMO? You know who won't abandon you when it feels like everyone else has? How about the God of the universe? He ain't afraid of the C word, commitment. In fact, he's so committed to you that he walked down the aisle of dead carcasses and said, I will die myself to fulfill this promise. And guess what? That's what he did. See, the Bible is a story of a committed God who could kick FOMO out and says, I'm going to die for you and I'm going to live up to every promise and obligation that I made you. And some of you need to remind yourself and let that marinate and sit in your bones that is the promise for your life, because our culture is longing for someone to commit to them, no strings attached, no pyramid scheme, and that story is found right here in Genesis 12. Are you familiar with the ways of God? Are you familiar with the father of Abraham, the God of Abraham? This morning, we celebrate communion, corporate communion. If you're new here, the first Sunday of every month we do this. There's a value of doing this together as a family. And so in a couple minutes, elders, deacons will come forward to distribute the elements. I'm going to have the worship team come up on the stage right now. And I mean, what a beautiful picture of communion in that literally the meal that we celebrate, the bread and the cup, is what? It's God making good on his promise of being committed to us, even if it means that he has to be killed. That is what communion is. You know, communion, what we celebrate, the cross, the death on the cross of Jesus is the fulfillment of the Abrahamic covenant in Genesis 15, that God says, man, I'm going to bless this whole world through people. You guys didn't live up to your deal, but I'm so committed to you that I will still do it, even if it means I have to be cut in half and dead on a cross. I'm living up and I'm fulfilling it, and I'm still going to move forward blessing this world through it. That's the gospel. So we eat and we drink with celebration. Now let me end with this story. I almost forgot this. In 1989, there's an 8.2 earthquake struck Armenia. This is a true story, by the way. It killed over 30,000 people in less than 4 minutes. In the midst of chaos and destruction, a loving father rushed to his son's school. But instead of a school, he just found a ton of rubble. Shock had crippled every parent who was walking around dazed, clutching at their hearts, calling out their child's name. Can you imagine the grief? But in the case of this father, the sight of rubble and ruin only made him spring into action. He ran to the back corner of the building where he knew where that used to be his son's classroom. And he began to dig, and he knew, why was he digging? Because he had made a promise to always be there for his boy. And it was that promise that animated his hands and motivated his heart. He began to dig. Parents, they tried to pull him out of the rubble, saying, it's too late, they're dead, you can't help, go home, there's nothing you can do. Fire chief comes over, tries to pull him out of the rubble, saying fires and explosions are happening everywhere. There's Zeus gas lines. You're in danger. We don't want you to die too. Just go home. Police come. Dude, you're angry. You're distraught. We get it, but it's over. You're endangering others. We need you to go home. We'll handle it. He continued to dig for 8 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours, 36 hours. And then the 38th hour, he pulled back a boulder and he heard his son's voice. Immediately, he screamed, Armand, Armand. And back came the words, Dad. I told them. I told the other kids that if you were still alive, you would save me. You promised me. You promised me that you would be here for me, and you did it, Dad. A committed, faithful father, a promise kept. No matter how much damage in front of him, that's our God. I want to invite forward our elders and our deacons to stand at the tables. If you're not a Christian here, there's zero pressure to partake. No one's going to look at you oddly. We're just glad you're here. If you do follow Jesus, this is a meal we take to celebrate the dad who removed the boulders to come find us when he promised he would. Whatever table's closest to you, if you could just come to that at this time. After that, we'll have the prayer team up. Come get prayer, be ministered to, be filled with the Spirit of God. He's in this place.